Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another amazing episode on the Unleashing Potentials podcast. I'm your host, Bernadette, and joining me today is Tom. How are you?
I'm great, Bernadette. It's really great to be with you today.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You're in Maui, right?
I am on Maui today. I am here on the island of Maui in Hawaii, and it's slated to be around, I don't know, 80 and sunny and a gorgeous day here on Maui.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So Tom, to start, can you tell us more about you? What is your story?
I'll be happy to. I'll give you what I call the thumbnail. I like to say I retired being retired to be inspired.
Mm.
I had a great corporate career. I ran customer service for a company called MCI that broke up all the Bell companies once upon a time for long distance. I was the head of customer service at Walmart.com, ran global service operations for Palm. For those of you that remember the Palm Pilot or the Trio, it's now part of HP. And I was sitting at my desk one day and a recruiter called from a little company called Facebook. And I almost didn't talk to them, but I reconnected and ended up interviewing with Mark Zuckerberg when he was 19. And it's a great story. And ended up going to Facebook and setting up all their customer operations, user operations, and some other things there, which was at a time of really high growth. I was in the first 100 employees, I think 57, but who's counting? And then I was off to chief support officer for a company that's now the backbone of the Geek Squad remote support. Had my own consulting business, was sent into a number of startups by boards with a problem as VP of HR or COO, and the problem was never what they thought.
Mm.
And then I fell in love, got married, and traveled the world, and which was really great. But I realized I had more to do and more to share. So today I'm a coach, I'm a speaker. I have a book coming out in just a few weeks, which I'm excited about. I'm also the host and creator of the Opening Pathways podcast, and I'm the CEO of the Academy for Coaching Excellence, which is a coaching academy that trains coaches around the world. So that's me, Bernadette.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. So much to unpack. Um, did you always wanted to do what you are doing now or what you did growing up, as a teen? Because um some of us we have dreams. When I grow up, I want to be this and this and that. How did that go
Yeah.
for you?
I think one thing that was a constant for me was about um, working with other people or helping other people or in some way being of service. And even as a little kid, I think that was part of my DNA or something. And as I grew up, that continued. And then I took coaching, believe it or not, in the late 90s before coaching was really a thing. And certainly before we had things like the ICF, International Coaching Federation, and academies. And we couldn't talk about it in work because when you said coaching, people thought you were, going to lead the softball or soccer team. But I used it and kind of packaged it under employee development. And it kept going of this idea of helping people. And what I didn't share with you is actually today I'm a philanthropist. So my life really is about service. I do all the things I shared with you to support my philanthropy, which serves underserved communities, um, first gen students, youth in the arts. I work on a lot of relevant women's issues today and some other things I'm really passionate about.
That's really cool. Um, Tell us more about your book, or do you have many books?
I have the first one coming out and two in the works. So the first one is titled My Life in Business Suits, Hospital Gowns, and High Heels.
Mm.
And the business suits part is about my corporate career. Hospital gowns, I've done everything I shared with you with two life-threatening illnesses. One I was told was terminal. I've lived with metastatic cancer for the last 13 years, and I'm still here. And the high heels, you're going to have to read the book. In fact, if you go to my website, you can get a sneak preview of the prologue and learn a little bit about what the book's about. Then I'm writing a book about my experience at Facebook because I was the oldest one there. Everybody was in their 20s, fresh out of college, deferring business school, law school, because it was in still just in colleges. And this was their dream job. And I was old enough to be everybody's father. So I'm going to write a book about that experience through my eyes. And then I have one coming up after that. That's My Life in Toxic Soup, about toxic cancer treatment and a toxic marriage woven together.
Oh,
But
wow.
the first one is My Life in Business Suits, Hospital Gowns, and High Heels, coming out in just a few weeks.
That's exciting. That's really cool. Tell us more about your journey of fighting cancer. When did you notice any symptoms or changes in diagnosis, and how did you
Yes,
fight your way through it?
it's interesting. I've had enough radiation that I likely glow in the dark. I can be a nightlight for people, you know. I had my father had prostate cancer and both grandfathers. So often, just like breast cancer, prostate cancer is hereditary. And so I was being watched like a hawk. And in that surveillance, suddenly there it was. And so I really didn't have many symptoms except that I was being monitored closely, which I really encourage others to do, is to be in touch with their bodies and find some way to monitor these things, especially if you have a predisposition to it in your family. And turns out mine wasn't hereditary at all. It's what's called soma, and I refer to it as sort of a malfunction in the code of my body. And interestingly enough, I had it removed, um, which was very successful. I go through a really intense process of how I was going to choose which treatment was available at the time. And I chose something called robotic surgery and recovered from that. And then the cancer metastasized a year later in my neck. And so I chose to do an interesting thing of exploring alternative medicine, traditional medicine, Eastern medicine, and focused on all three of those for my treatment. And I had done that before with the previous ailments. I created something called my healing wheel. And so if you can imagine spokes off a wheel of maybe acupuncture, massage, my doctors, other modalities where I'm at the center, I'm in charge. And that's how I approached it, was me being in charge of what was going to happen. And I've been given 6 months to live 3 times on this journey. And that's what my whole business is about today is risk, resilience, and reinvention. How we take risks, how we are resilient, and how we reinvent ourselves. I look at risk and resilience sort of like a muscle, just like we would exercise our bicep or tricep, to have nice arms.
Mm,
As you use risk and resilience in your life, you get stronger and can use it even more. And resilience just isn't about getting back up.
mm.
It's about what you learn and how you grow from the experience.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing. Um, what is your mindset now? Now that you've kind of faced death and you were given a second chance at life, how do you view life now after everything?
One of the greatest lessons about this experience is a few things, but one is there are no do-overs.
Mm,
Often we spend so much of our time thinking about what happened, what we would do differently, the coulda, woulda, shouldas of the situation. And I want to share with you there are no do-overs. Spending too much time there, unless there's something to learn, you're missing what's happening right here now.
mm, yeah.
If you get too far in the future, other than those things that we need to make sure are covered, like we've got gas in the car, food in the refrigerator, the light bill is paid, getting too far in the future, yes, setting some goals, knowing what your dreams are, but being right here is where it happens. Because I would remind everyone, we woke up this morning. Some people did not.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah. What would you say sets you apart from other coaches?
I think one of the things that sets me apart is um, I work with a modality, and sometimes people are like, oh, what are you talking about? But I'm going to say it to you anyway. It's called an ontological model. So the study of ontology, which I encourage you to look up, just like we have psychology, the study of psychology is about your mind, your thoughts, your dreams. Cosmology, well, there's ontology, and ontology is the study of being. So, what I'm interested in is how you are being and how that relates to you reaching your goals and dreams and the things that you want to do in this life, even finding out what you came here to do, versus the psychology of what happened at 5, what your last relationship did. I'm more interested in how you're being right now. I have this thing in my practice I call the haystack method. You hear people say all the time, it's like finding a needle in the haystack. Well, I think the needle is your answers. I think people have their own answers. So I help people find their needle, their answers, by clearing away the hay. Because all you got to do is move the hay, and there the needle is. All you have to do is move the hay of what you've got around you and swirling around, and you have your answer.
Mm, I love that. I love how you put it. Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Yes.
Yeah, who do you interview on your podcast? And
Yeah.
what do you guys talk about?
Yeah, it's my podcast is Opening Pathways. I'm proud to say it got written up in U.S. Business News magazine, and it's on all the major platforms. YouTube has the video, so I kind of like that. It's got its own channel. And what I do is I interview primarily tech CEOs, founders, and that kind of level, as well as executive directors of nonprofits. I'm involved with a lot of nonprofits in my philanthropy work. I'm on a few boards, so I love the idea of service and I love keeping up with technology because of obvious reasons I shared. And what I do on it is I interview the person. We learn a little bit about them and their backstory, and we end with some wisdom they might want to share. In the middle, I do some interesting questions that revolve around leadership and values and even trust.
Mm, those are very important key points to tackle. Let's talk about leadership.
Yes, let's talk about leadership.
Um, what are some core essence of leadership?
I think there's a saying going around now that I'm going to put my spin on it. But if you're a leader who's not developing other leaders who will then develop other leaders, you're not being a leader.
Yeah.
If you're a leader who is one that is dictating everything that will happen instead of working collaboratively, you're not a leader. There are many other facets that fall along this same kind of thinking about being a leader today. And, there's one thing about being a leader that some people miss, which is being vulnerable. Sometimes as a leader, we think we can't be wrong.
Mm,
When we think that way, we limit ourselves from others thinking and knowing we're human just like them. Some of the best things that have happened to me, some of my biggest successes, have come from my mistakes.
mm,
True leaders are willing to make mistakes, to learn from them, and model for others what it looks like. Everything I do has a quote from Maya Angelou that I love so much, which is every storm runs out of rain. It applies to so many things in my life, from my health to everything. It also applies to leadership. I have a lot of articles on my website or on my LinkedIn if you're interested about leadership and this idea of how we use leadership to develop ourselves while developing others.
mm. I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
Yeah, why is it important more than ever now in this time we're living in to raise up leaders that can carry the next generation without bias?
I will share with you that I've watched a number of generations, and I just did a podcast recently with Gen Z, and in fact, it got posted, I think, yesterday. It's by Ease Radio, and I went and spent some time with 7 Gen Zers, and it was great. I spent the day with them, and we had such an amazing time. And what I found to be true, which I've seen with so many generations, and I'm sure it was mine as well once upon a time, is we label new generations as being lazy, or we assign things to them like And remember the millennials, Gen Y was, they all don't dress well and they have tattoos. And now Gen Z gets labeled with, they don't want to work or they're lazy or they have these strict ideas. Well, people are just trying to find their way and it's part of evolution.
Mhm.
And I think if you are a true leader, you acknowledge that these things exist and you mentor and help people. And guess what? It's a good chance you're going to learn something along the way because what Gen Z is speaking about now is if you hear about them talk about working really hard and then taking breaks, even mini vacations, we used to talk about that in previous generations as work-life balance, right? It's not so different. Maybe they're putting it in action. They're more focused on caring for their health. We now can talk about mental health where it used to be hidden behind secrecy and never discussed. I find these things to be refreshing and we're moving forward.
Yeah.
True leaders foster these kinds of things. True leaders allow them to evolve. True leaders inspire others to have these discussions and look at new ways to approach things.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, mental health, huh?
Yes, more
Wow.
than ever right now, more than ever.
Yeah, yeah. I'm diagnosed with different diagnoses, and it's my mission and journey to let people know it's okay. Because often in society, we shame people when they are trying to be vulnerable and open. And I'm like, no wonder we don't want to talk. Right? Because
Yes,
it's like this, going back and forth. Doctors are saying, talk. Society is saying, if you talk, we're gonna know what you're hiding. This and it's a whole shaming thing. So
yes.
I'm just here, to share my experience and to let people know it's okay to be human. It is.
Yes, Bernadette, we're much more alike than we're ever going to be different. And I find when this shaming or this unwillingness to talk about it happens with a few things. One, people simply don't know what to say.
Yeah.
It's a place that when someone tells them that, they don't know what to say, or they feel a bit vulnerable in that moment because, you kind of ask yourself, well, what if? Maybe or they actually are experiencing themselves and haven't gotten to the point where they're willing to talk about it. Fortunately, today we have so many more vehicles for people to bring this to light. And I'm thrilled that we are talking about it more. And it's one of the exciting things I love about um, generations that are evolving of how we're bringing some of these things to the forefront that are real and should be discussed and allow us to find ways to support and help each other through the storms of life.
Yeah.
Because life is full of storms.
Oh.
Anybody that says life is like this, just cruising along, is either flatlined or not really living. Life is a series of this. I believe that this is a time to learn, grow. This is a time to put what you learned into action, knowing
Mhm.
at some point, it's going to be a time of learning and growing again. It's a
Yeah.
great way to look at life, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I agree. Thank you for sharing. What would you say to people who are going through a hard time right now? It could, by hard time, I mean anything, really, because like we've
Yes.
talked, people don't really talk.
Yes, there are many people that are having a hard time right now, and the power of sharing, the power for asking others for support, finding support, being sure if you're feeling vulnerable or feeling something is you're at risk in any way to speak up. We're in a time where people have more vehicles to do it, and there's so much going on right now that we just get clouded with. I think that you know COVID, which we still talk about, it's still here, but
Mhm.
certainly the pandemic when we all had to retreat, and there's so many benefits of what's happened out of it from Zoom to the ability to reach more people. There's interesting things, but there's also some things that happened where we weren't having interactions and we didn't have friendships the same. So I think it's a great time for us to find like-minded people, even find people we don't often agree with, depending on what the topic is, but that can listen, and definitely a time to remember who your friends are, who you love. Tell them that. And remember, there are people that can help. Reach out if you're feeling vulnerable. There's a number of places to reach. Don't think you have to own it yourself. Be willing to share and be willing to ask for support. Remember, people are having their own issues today. It's a time where people have got a lot on their mind. So sometimes in doing that, think about how you're doing it. Think about making sure you're listening.
Hmm.
Listening is such an important thing in life. So many of us are listening while thinking about how we're going to respond versus listening to what's being said.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really important to trust yourself to know that you're going to respond okay. You do it all the time. Listen with the intent of hearing what's being said and not miss anything, because sometimes we miss a key point of what somebody's saying that they're trying to express that we could use
Yeah.
many dimensions of it while we're doing this little thing about what am I going to say? What am I going to say? Or whatever that voice is in your ear.
Hmm. I agree. Thank you for sharing. Let's talk about risk and resilience. And I want to tie that to our hidden potentials because some of us have dreams we are ready to give birth to them, but we are terrified. And because of fear, we do nothing, and time is passing by.
Time is passing by, and I think that fear comes from a number of things. Will I fail?
Mm,
Will I make a mistake? How will I look to others? And one of the big ones is somebody told me I couldn't do it.
mm,
Somebody said to me, you're never going to be that, or some flavor of it. I know in my generation, we used to be told what we could be and what we couldn't be.
yeah.
Weird, huh?
Yep.
So I think that if you look at some of the great people of our time, they took a risk on what they wanted to do. Now, be strategic. If you want to do something new, don't give up your full-time job to go jump on it right away. Maybe you need to map that out a little bit and get it set up and do it as a secondary thing as you're doing, and then migrate over. Sometimes you can just jump over depending how successful it is. But I promise you this, as I shared earlier, risk is just like a muscle. The more you use it, the easier it is to use, the more effective you'll be using it. It's just like, remember, when you started walking, you had to crawl first. Very few kids just stood up and started walking without crawling.
Mm,
It's the same thing with taking these risks. Baby steps. We want to take big leaps. I spoke with somebody the other day and I asked them what it was their vision was that they've always wanted to do. And when they said it, you can feel this delta between what they're at now and where they're going to be. And so the opportunity with that person was to break it down to see how you might get there. Sometimes we want to jump to it instead of realizing there's work to be put in. And these baby steps that we take add up to be a big leap. But a big leap sometimes is too big to make. But
mm,
the big thing about risk is to try it on. Don't listen to the naysayers. Don't listen to the people that told you what you could be. Check in, do some research, listen to your heart, study up. If you've got a passion for it, find a way to express it and test it out and take a risk. Resilience is all about knowing that mistakes and failures are what makes people successful. Guarantee you can talk to anybody from Oprah to your favorite TV star, your favorite movie star, your favorite inspirational speaker, anything. And if they're truly going to tell you the truth, they had some failures and mistakes that got them to where they were. It's just how it works.
yeah.
Know it when they happen, learn from them, and keep moving on. It's back to that. There's no do-overs, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
then
agree.
reinvention, which is my other word, you take these risks, you have resilience when you need to get back up and remember to grow from them. It's not just about getting back up, it's how you grow from them. And reinvention is how then you take that and say, what did I learn? And now how am I going to move forward next?
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about as we wrap up the episode soon?
Well, I'd love to share with you to please go to my website, tomlenoble.com. I'm on LinkedIn and all the socials. I hope you'll take a little sneak peek, I think they call it on the website, and get the prologue of the book
Yeah.
and watch for that book to come out, My Life in Business Suits, Hospital Gowns, and High Heels. You know, I'll tell you what's really behind the book for the reader.
Mhm.
I've taken some really disparate parts of my life, and sometimes we have parts of our life that we either feel shame for, or we just think nobody's going to get it. Nobody would ever understand, or I need to keep this private, or whatever your version is.
Mm,
Here's the fact. Who you are today, who you are today is the result of all that's happened in your life. If one thing in your life didn't happen, you probably wouldn't be who you are today.
yeah, yeah.
And I believe when we own that, there's something wonderful that happens not only for ourself and the freedom and the release it brings,
Mm,
the true alignment it brings to ourselves, but people learn from us and realize that those things in their lives are okay. And without them, they wouldn't be who they are today.
mm. Well said. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Where can people find you? That's my last question for you, because I can
Yes.
also see your website, where your name is.
Yeah, my website, tomlenoble.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I'm on all those socials. That's the best place to find me. And my website has lots of great stuff on it. LinkedIn has a lot of stuff that I write. I love to write and share. This week I'm doing the Art of series, the
Mm.
art of clarity, the art of different things, the art of bold thinking. So I do these series every now and then. I did one recently on leadership, if that speaks to you. So you can cycle back and see some of them. And I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Last question for you, Tom. What is the meaning of life for you?
The meaning of life for me is to remember that I woke up and I have this day before me and to be grateful for it.
Mm,
One thing I have learned, fortunately, a long time ago, and it's proven to be so important to me, is my gratitude practice.
mm,
It can be really simple. Before I go to sleep at night, I speak the things that I'm grateful for from the day. When I wake up in the morning, the first thought I have or try to have is to express gratitude that I woke up again. Again, some people didn't,
yeah.
and to make the most of each day. The meaning of life is to realize it's finite. When we're young, we think there's no end. There is. It happens much quicker than you think. Make the most of every day and never forget, have a little fun.
Mm, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Tom, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Thank you for all that you do. Continue to empower, inspire, and equip others. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernadette. It was great to be with you. I appreciate being with you today.
You're welcome.